Hello and welcome back to the Scoop with Coop. And I know that it's been a little bit since my last upload. I went out of town, and I also got a very lingering cough, which doing this with a cough isn't exactly an easy thing. But we seem to have weathered the storm, and we seem to be good. And in today's video, I want to really be talking about what does it mean when we have the debate between best player available and need-based picks for NFL teams during the draft, because it's draft season now, right? I'm gonna have to go back and redo my mock draft because my number two overall pick decided let's go back to college. Um, that's a little unfortunate, but that's exactly what these things are made for. They're made to amend and made to be made better. And it's exactly what I'm going to be doing, but not necessarily in today's video. I just more so want to be going and talking about, is it better to take just overall good football players than it is to just take players who may be a better fit for your team and what your team needs are? And I think it's a very interesting conundrum because when you get good football players, they're good. But the problem with that is if you say you already have a good wide receiver and your offensive line is terrible, you're probably going to want to take offensive linemen. But is it better to sometimes take that second receiver if he's just that good at football? And I think no greater recent memory occurrence of this happening is the 2023 NFL draft. Because in this draft, there were a ton of good players. Notably, there were a lot of good quarterbacks at the top of the board. And that's where you have three out of the first four picks being quarterbacks. And so then that leads to certain players slipping and falling in the draft. And one of these teams that went up there and is like, we have a need and we're going to be willing to trade to go get that need was the Green Bay Packers. Because the Packers, they needed pass rush. They absolutely needed it. And they decided to go take Lucas Van Ness instead of taking who were just better football players, looking strictly at who was a better football player at the time. I can tell you that Christian Gonzalez, I had a high grade on him. And he, let's face it, if the Patriots won the Super Bowl, he would have been the Super Bowl MVP because he was absolutely fantastic in that game. And then, one pick later after that, you get Jack Campbell, who I believe is an all-pro or at the very least a Pro Bowl linebacker in your own division. So you're seeing that, okay, instead of taking who we believe, or I'm assuming they had that grade higher, but instead of taking the best football player on the board, you go, you know what, we need pass rush, let's go take pass rush. Even though we've already seen the best pass rushing talents go off of the board in the case of Will Anderson being off the board, Tyree Wilson, which, you know what, you may have dodged a bullet there, and Jalen Carter. I mean, you see those three were the big three in that class. Two of them have very much panned out. The other one, not so much. But now you're left with the best of the rest. Instead of going and just taking, you know what? I know for certainty this guy is a good football player. Now, it may not be in a position that we need, but good football players result in good things, and good football players are what we need. And I think that when the Packers went and just didn't take the best player on the board, because Lucas Van Ness was a reach, and it's kind of showed. Because I don't know if you can see my tab next to my browser. You can see that the Packers, because they whiffed on this pick and didn't take the best football player possible, they then realized, oh, we didn't get the depth either that it takes to be a competent and successful team. So not only did we reach on a player who may be in a more premium position, instead of just taking the best football player possible, we then have to go trade 2 first-round picks and a pretty good player to be able to get a player in Micah Parsons where he is at that premium need. And then you have to pay him $40 million instead of just taking the best player. Because even if you took the best possible player, you can go get edges in free agency. If you look over the past few years, Trey Hendrickson, he, a couple times, well, now he's going to the Ravens, you get him. You get Jonathan Grenard. You get Danielle Hunter. These players are acquired through free agency instead of the draft. And so instead of looking at these trends, you go and I don't want to say you overpay because Micah Parsons is one of those fantastic players, but you give up so many assets to where now you're depleted of truly essential draft capital to where now you're paying a player $30 million. So now that side is good, but you've lost that depth and other star talent on the roster to compensate for the fact that you're not going to have that depth at the pass rush. But if you have a lockdown secondary, one pass rush is all you need. So, I mean, it just seems as though, looking at this, in my personal philosophy, taking the best pure football player on the board is the most important strategy. The only time you don't do that is if it's like a quarterback or like a running back. Because if you already have a pretty good running back, you don't need to take a running back in the first round. If you have a quarterback, you really don't need to take another quarterback. But other than that, all of the best teams have the most depth at positions. All of these teams have depth where they're not at the premium, high quality, utmost positions, but the depth wins. I mean, if you look over the last few years, the Super Bowl winners were teams where they had a good pass rusher, like individually, but they had so much depth that linemen couldn't take a single break off without realizing, oh, you got to be kidding me. We've got to go guard him? Are you kidding? That's their sub? I mean, depth is what wins in the NFL. And so I think just getting the best pure football player is the most important thing about building an NFL team. And now the draft season is officially upon us. I will continue to make videos about the NFL draft. We also have basketball, so stay tuned for that. Don't worry, I didn't forget. I'm going to, hopefully in the next few days, put out a video about who is going to be the MVP candidate and who is, in my opinion, the MVP of the league, as there are a lot more candidates this year than there were in past years. So stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of big things coming to the channel. And as always, this is the Scoop with Goop. Until next time.